You are watching No Filter with Debbie. These are my views and opinions. Welcome to No Filter with Debbie. I'm Debbie Schlussel, and you know what's driving me crazy? What's driving me crazy is the excessive hype and hyperbole that we never saw for President Trump's inauguration, that we saw today over Joe Biden's vanilla, boring, dull, unremarkable inauguration and everything that went along with it. So this morning, we saw President Trump taking off in Marine One, the helicopter, from the White House lawn, and then he held a little rally at the Andrews Joint Base. He used to be Andrews Air Force Base. And I think the speech he gave was classy. He did wish the new administration success. He wished all of his supporters a good life. And what I saw, instead of saying, hey, the president did what all of us in the mainstream left liberal media have urged him to do, he wished Joe Biden's administration success. No, they didn't give him that compliment. They did not acknowledge it. Instead, what they said was, oh my goodness, all he got was a very small crowd in this mini campaign rally. Only a small crowd. Are you kidding me? If the president wanted a huge, giant crowd, he would have had that. They only advertised this kind of at the last minute. People are at work. There wasn't a lot of time to organize buses from around the country to come in. And remember what happened the last time there were buses organized from around the country to come to a rally that he led. Well, we know what happened. He got blamed for the insurrection, the riots at the Capitol. And you know my position on this. I don't know that he bears any responsibility for what happened, but he should not have told people to march to the Capitol and said, I'm going to march with you, when he didn't. And I think he should have gotten on TV right away to condemn it live. Now, even if he would have done those things, it would have happened anyway, because we know this was planned at least 2 weeks in advance. The FBI knew about it at least 2 weeks in advance. They didn't do anything about it. So they were at fault. So that is my position on that. And you know what I think about it. But I think everything that is going on with the president, this impeachment, this blame of every single person that ever worked for the president, this blame of any senators and congressmen that did what Democrats have done repeatedly since and including Ronald Reagan's second election, of objecting to the certifying of votes, this rush to excommunicate them from the world is absurd. It's ridiculous. And we need to look back at what President Trump did. He had a great 4 years. And I do think that he made a mistake maybe in some of the things the last 2 months. But so what? Should that wipe out everything he did for 4 years? As I've said, personally, I don't think he's the greatest person personally. I don't like some of the things he's done to people the most loyal to him, like Mike Pence and some others who've worked for him. But that is not the issue. The issue is what he did as president. He did a phenomenal job. How soon we forget. He did so many things. And I have a whole bunch of bullet points. So let's take a look at that graphic that we prepared. Look at that. The stock market soared from 18,000 to 31,000 today. It was at 18,000 or just below when he took the office of the presidency. The Supreme Court was packed with about an even split. If you count Justice Roberts, and I do as a liberal, it was a liberal court. Now it is leaning conservative. He appointed 3 justices. He said he would, and he did. He released the list of justices he would appoint when he was running. He chose from that list. Now, ISIS is basically defeated for now. But we know how ISIS rose to power because President Obama ignored ISIS. He said it's the JV team. President Trump came in and we pulverized ISIS. We got rid of ISIS. Yes, it is still simmering. And if Joe Biden does all of the things that he said he's going to do, and he continues what looks to be a third term of the Obama presidency, ISIS will rise again. And everything the president did to defeat them will be for naught. And it is not lost on me, by the way, that the war in Iraq created ISIS. We all know that. We all know that taking out Saddam Hussein and purging Saddam Hussein loyalists created ISIS. Those were the Saddam Hussein people who founded ISIS. Originally, it was Al-Qaeda in Iraq and Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula. That became ISIS. They were people who were supporters of Saddam Hussein and who were Sunnis and who felt like they'd been shut out. And I'm not justifying. ISIS is a horrible group. Listen, I wish all of these Islamic terrorist groups would only fight each other forever and they would all lose. But President Trump got rid of that. Can we go back to my graphic? Because I think I had something else on the graphic. All right. So we had a lot of troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, and guess what? President Trump drew them down to about less than 2,500 per country. So we have about 5,000, give or take, over there. He promised he would bring the troops home. He kept to that promise for the most part. He deployed the vaccine faster than anybody else thought possible. And how did he do that? With Operation Warp Speed. Everybody said you can't do it. It's going to take 9 years. It's going to take 10 years. I have said I think it was rushed and I will not take the vaccine. But he was under pressure to do it. They said it couldn't be done. He did it. Wait, can we put that list back up, please? Stop going out of the list. Thank you. All right. He also reduced taxes and regulations. And that's how our economy was humming along, because when you increase taxes and regulations, as the Obama people did, as Joe Biden has vowed to do, you crush the economy. When you lift the yoke of those things off of the economy, guess what? The economy comes speeding along. And he did that until coronavirus struck. And he was forced, and he didn't really do this, this was liberal governors across the country, to shut the economy down, to quote-unquote flatten the curve, which we know never really was their intention. They wanted us homeless, at home, dependent upon the government. He built, depending on which estimate you believe, between 12 and 30 miles of the wall across the Mexican border. He did say Mexico was going to pay for it. Mexico did not pay, but he started to do it. It's a start. It's a lot of work to get this done. I know Ann Coulter and some others were critical of him for not building much. It's a lot of work. It's expensive, too, and a lot of strategic planning. He secured peace between Israel and 4 Muslim nations. So those nations were Sudan, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and one other was Morocco. You are not going to see any of that under Joe Biden. Not a lick of that. Not even anything close to resembling that. So those are just some of the things he did. He did so much more. He established the 1776 Commission to investigate the far left-wing history and curriculum taught in the schools. He did so many things, and he just did not get credit for them. Instead, he got pooped on all over the place, and guess what? It happened again today. And one of the people doing it is this horrible person I've been telling you about. She's now 18. The Veruca Salt of our time. By the way, Veruca Salt is that girl from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the spoiled girl. She says, Daddy, I want a golden ticket and I want it now. And her father has all his employees looking through these candy bars for the golden ticket. She's the Veruca Salt in real life of our time. Greta Thunberg, the environmental activist who said, you've stolen my childhood, you've stolen my dreams. Please. So she tweeted against him, and she said he seems like a very happy old man looking forward to a bright and wonderful future. No, so nice to see. So she's making fun of what the president said about her. The difference is she looked bitter and angry when he said it about her. He's happy. Listen, he's happy to go home. Yes, this is a big defeat. He wishes he would have been reelected. But come on, you're a low-life Greta Thunberg. I don't care how old you are and what your mental condition is, you're being used. All right, when we come back, I'm so excited. We have our special guest. Today is not only the inauguration, it's also the 40th anniversary of a momentous event in U.S. history, and we will talk to someone who was involved in it, a great American, when we come back after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Are you a thrill seeker, sightseer, or day tripper? The Ford Bronco Sport SUV is built for you. Fort Bears Casino is giving away a 2021 Ford Bronco Sport loaded with a ton of interior space, safari-style roof, smooth suspension for any terrain, and easy-to-clean surfaces. Qualify now just by playing your favorite slots at Fort Bears Casino. Double points on Sundays. Also get in on Super Senior Wednesdays, slot turning Thursdays, and hot seats on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Spin into Fort Bears Casino and Lodge for chances to win.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Heroes and Icons is now Cozy TV. Don't worry, you'll still get your favorite Beck News programming without changing the channel. Real people, real news, Beck News.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie on Beck. So today is not just the inauguration of Joe Biden and the last half day of the Trump presidency. It's actually something far more important, and that is the 40th anniversary of the release of the United States hostages who were kept captive for 444 days by the revolutionaries who took over Iran. And joining me today on No Filter with Debbie on Beck is my longtime friend, Kevin Hermaning, who was the youngest of the U.S. hostages in Iran. Welcome to No Filter with Debbie on Beck, Kevin.
Morning, Debbie, and thank you for the opportunity to join you this afternoon.
Thank you. So, Kevin, let me ask you, how old were you when you were taken hostage in Iran?
Well, I had just turned 20 years old, so I celebrated my 21st birthday during the 444 days in captivity.
And
I was the youngest of all of the Marine Guards who were assigned to the embassy, and of the 52 of us who were held captive, the youngest of the whole group.
So you were a Marine guard at the embassy, but the day that they breached the wall surrounding the embassy, that was your day off, wasn't it?
I was not working that day. Actually, I was in the Chancellery building, so I was in the offices. But when Marine security guards are not on duty, but are in the buildings, they're required to be in a suit and tie. And so rather than being in fatigues or dress blues, and back then during the Revolution, we would have normally been wearing fatigues, I was there planning the Marine Ball, which would have been November 10th, 1979. And got caught up in all of that mess that morning. By the way, one other big thing that I was planning to do that morning, and I in fact had just turned in my paperwork, my assignment in Tehran was supposed to be for 6 months. And I enjoyed being there, learning the culture, the people, traveling around the countryside as limited as we could do that. I planned to be there a little longer than 6 months because I had just turned in paperwork extending my 6-month tour to 1 year. Little did I know that just about 4 hours later, the Iranians would involuntarily extend my tour.
So tell me, how did it happen? It must have been a frightening experience. Tell me about that day.
Well, Marine security guards, back then at least, we didn't have any automatic weapons. The only weapons we carried were 12-gauge shotguns, like you might use to go duck hunting or pheasant hunting back in northern Wisconsin, and we carried 38 caliber revolvers. Yeah, we had a lot of tear gas, a big satchel of tear gas, each of us. But what began as just one more of the daily demonstrations surrounding the compound, the third largest one in the world, a 27-acre sprawling compound near downtown Tehran, just across from the largest soccer stadium in the city, which is where Friday prayers and Sunday prayers would always take place. The Iranians began marching down the streets, and instead of just standing out in front of the compound, chanting and demonstrating and throwing things onto the grounds and burning American flags and effigies of President Jimmy Carter, they began scaling the 8-foot concrete walls. They barged through the motor pool front gate. The local police, who were responsible for the internal security, or external security at the embassy, I should say, they disappeared. And before you knew it, they were cutting their way into the lower level of the Chancellery building, attacking and capturing the rest of the Marines who were asleep in their apartments, which was off the back gate across the alleyway, and then rounding up other Americans who were, for a variety of reasons, out on the grounds. And it began a 444-day nightmare. My situation was no walk in the park, for sure. But it wasn't quite as bad as men such as Colonel Charles Scott, who was beaten so severely around the face and cheek and chin that he had 3 of his teeth busted off right at the gum line and had no medical or dental treatment until we were freed 14 months later. And people like Tom Ahern and Bill Doherty, who were involved in our CIA operation there, really, people think of the word CIA as this always big, insidious event and activity that people participate in. But really, they were trying to make sure that our country could learn to get along with the new Ayatollah's regime. Remember, the Shah had just fallen about 9 or 10 months earlier. And the Ayatollah came in with a goal of instituting the Islamic Republic, which he's done with, I would say, the Ayatollah came in with limited results and limited success and a lot of acrimony on the world stage. And then my friend, they were in solitary confinement for 425 days, those 2 guys. And then my friend Bill Keogh, who was a civilian. I didn't know Bill before we were captured, and he and I became roommates for 6 months, Debbie. And Bill Keogh, a big 6'9" tall, 350-pound guy, ended up losing actually more than half of his body weight. And when we were finally freed on January 20th, 1981, 40 years ago this afternoon, Bill Keogh weighed only 150 pounds and would die of Lou Gehrig's disease less than 2 years after we were freed.
Wow. So that's amazing. I mean, it's very sad. And that is blood on the hands of the Ayatollah and the Iranian revolutionaries. Let me ask you this. There's this iconic picture that I have seen many times. I put it up on my website of you going to the White House meeting President Reagan. And you look like you've lost a ton of weight in captivity. captivity as well, your Marine uniform, and I think we have that picture. Your Marine uniform is basically hanging on you. How much weight did you lose, and did they feed you guys while in captivity?
Well, we had 3 meals a day. I wouldn't consider them all, I would use the word meal a little bit in a pejorative way many times. But we had a lot of Iranian breads, and we had tea every day. And they brought in a guy who was a culinary student at one of the local universities to try to make some meals that we could stomach on a regular basis. And that was with limited success as well. But I think that all of my meals, all put together during those 14 months, resulted in me losing about 15 pounds. I was a pretty thin guy as it was, being a young Marine at the time. But I do remember something even more important and gratifying than all the meals in captivity. And that was when we were on our way home. We were at the Wiesbaden Airport, the Air Force Hospital Airport, Air Force Hospital in Wiesbaden, Germany, en route home. And after we called our families, we had our first meal in freedom. And the state of Maine had flown over 52 live lobsters that we enjoyed as our first meal in freedom. So that was pretty spectacular.
Wow. So we have 1 minute left before the break, or a little less than that. Let me ask you, many of us have seen the movie Argo. I think you have seen it. And there were scenes in there where the Iranians blindfolded the American hostages and then shot at them, letting them to believe that they would be assassinated at that time, executed. Did that really happen?
So the movie Argo with Ben Affleck was actually more about the men and women who never were held hostage. They were sheltered over at the Canadian Embassy for a couple of months before being spirited out of the country. But it is true, there were some scenes from our time in captivity, those of us who were hostages, and that was a mock execution that happened in February of 1980, and I would singularly describe that as the most frightening event of the entire 444 days.
And did that happen more than once?
Thankfully and gratefully, that type of event happened only once. There were some Russian roulette events that happened more often during other occasions. We can talk about that later.
Wow. All right. When we come back, we will get into more of your experience, and I want to get your take on Joe Biden and some of the things going on now with Iran. That and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
In southwestern and south central North Dakota, on any given day at any given moment, a Dakota Community Bank and Trust customer is logging in or signing on to do their online or mobile banking. We believe that community banking can blend both the past with down-home customer service in-house and the future with modern banking conveniences and technology for our customers anywhere, like here or here, all while honoring our long-standing tradition of community-first oriented banking here at Dakota Community Bank and Trust.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here are terrific. We enjoy it.
Beck News brings you real people and real news. every weekday on KNDB, KNDM, and KRDK. Start your evening with the Dr. Duke Show at 4. Take a fresh look at current events with Ladies of Another View at 4:30. Go down the road with Joel at 5:30. Watch No Apologies with Becker at 9. Cap off your night with No Filter with Debbie at 10. Beck News. Real people, real news.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless, and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie. On Beck, we are talking to Kevin Hermaning, the youngest of the U.S. hostages in Iran who was freed 40 years ago today on the date that Ronald Reagan was sworn in as president. And Kevin, I have a question related to that. So I have a running debate with one of my liberal friends. He says that Jimmy Carter negotiated your release. Ronald Reagan got the credit, doesn't deserve any, had nothing to do with it. True or false?
Well, Jimmy Carter did, in fact, negotiate our release, but notice the Iranians despised him so much that they did not want to release us while he was still in the White House, so they, to deny him the credit for having gotten us out. But let's make no mistake, it was actually Ronald Reagan and his new Secretary of State, General Alexander Haig, who were already drawing up plans to try to deal with our situation in a military manner if we were not released within 48 to 72 hours. So it really became about peace through strength. And the greatest president of the 20th century, Ronald Reagan, is the one who really pushed the Iranians to the edge and forced them to take steps to free the hostages and get us out of their control because they didn't know what he might do next.
You know, and that goes along with what one of my Facebook friends said today. One of my friends said that they were scared to death of Ronald Reagan. They were not afraid of Jimmy Carter. And had Jimmy Carter been elected to a second term, they probably would not have released you. And there was that attempt by Jimmy Carter to rescue you with the Marines, and it failed. Now, do you agree with that statement that you might have been in captivity a lot longer if Jimmy Carter had been elected?
Well, I would say that part of the question is actually a little bit unclear. The Shah of Iran was their reason for being, the Guards' reason for being. They took over the embassy because they so despised the Shah of Iran, and they considered the U.S. president, Jimmy Carter, as the proxy for planning a return or a coup to get the Shah back into power. There is no truth to that whatsoever. The Shah of Iran was a very sick man. He would die less than 8 months later after being exiled out of the country. And once the Shah had died, the Iranians needed to begin coming up with a new plan to free us, to get us out of there. And it came down to demanding an apology from the United States government for having interfered in the internal affairs of Iran for 26 years when he first went into power. It was not just President Carter, it was every president of the United States from 1956 until 53 until 79 that was supportive of our best ally in that part of the Middle East, which really stood as a bulwark against the Soviet Union. Remember, this was in the height of the Cold War, and the thing that the Soviets coveted more than anything else was access to a warm water port. So in that part of the Middle East, the Shah was one of our allies. And you really can tell who your friends and allies are if we fast forward now to 2021 or even 2020, and we look at all of the countries that have lined up to try to make some type of a peace deal with what I consider to be our nation's biggest ally on the face of the earth, and that would be Israel. We're suddenly seeing all of the rest of the countries line up to do that in the Middle East, except for Iran. And of course, you can't really count Hamas and Hezbollah. They think they are a country in Palestine. But
True.
The truth of the matter is that the Shah of Iran was never going to go back into the country. And President Reagan really exhibited the type of peace through strength, I think, that really became almost the hallmark of American foreign power and military power until probably 2009 when Barack Obama took office.
All right, so let me ask you this. While you were a hostage, a congressman that I later worked for, and also the late Walter Williams, the conservative writer and professor, they both said that Jimmy Carter should have bombed Iran right away, and that then you would have been released because they would have seen that America means business. Do you agree with that?
I do, actually. My biggest statement that I've made thousands of times since 1979 is that we were seen as a paper tiger. It was, I think, very clear to the Iranian regime, certainly to the more militant guards who were holding us, and without a doubt to the Ayatollah and his followers, not just in Iran, but in Paris and in Morocco and in Iraq at the time, where the Ayatollah had been in exile prior to heading to Paris before he came back to Iran, that the U.S. seemingly was unwilling to take important steps to protect their citizens abroad. And you didn't have to threaten the American hostages. We would not have had to have been in danger, but some of the more important military operations, their ports in the Persian Gulf, their dams, their hydroelectric facilities, their military bases, they all would and could have been targets that would have extracted the hostages from Iran in a much different way.
Kevin, what have we learned, if anything, about securing our embassies, or have we learned anything at all? You know what happened at the embassy or the consulate in Benghazi, and it seems like they did not learn lessons decades earlier when you were at the embassy in terms of securing it. Is that right?
What's really important as we think about our nation's diplomatic posts around the world is that for a millennia, it has been up to the host government to protect citizens, diplomats who are in their countries. And just as in Libya, in Iran, in Somalia, in Beirut, the host government didn't do their jobs. And so we have to know the people who are really in charge and ensure that we have our people's interests at heart. And if we cannot rely on the host government, our people shouldn't be there.
Amen to that, Kevin. All right, one last question. I guess it's kind of a compound question. So you saw this really lopsided, horrible deal that Barack Obama did with Iran, where we literally shipped pallets of cash, zillions of dollars to them. And now Joe Biden, President Trump pulled out of this deal. Now Joe Biden has announced that he is going to go back into this deal. What did you think about Obama's deal? What do you think about Joe Biden's decision to go back into it?
The decision in 2015 to make a deal with Iran, sending them billions of dollars in cash on pallets in the middle of the night from Switzerland in 4 different currencies, one of the worst foreign policy decisions of the last 40 years, without a doubt. There are others, but none worse than that. And of course, it was announced this morning, right before the new president was sworn in, that Iran was going to reinitiate the operations of their nuclear reactors. I'm not shocked by that at all. It is a frightening time on the world stage, and the new president should not pull back and go back into the deal and undo the Trump plan. We'll see. we should watch and worry.
Right on, Kevin. One last question. I lied. I know I said that was the last question. This is my last question. You spent 444 days in captivity for America, in service to America. What do you think of the lockdowns that we have experienced over the last year?
Well, Debbie, I have tried to not live as part of a lockdown society as much as I can. I'm the president of my local school board. We've worked really hard, voting 9-0, 40 different times to mitigate the problem, to try to keep the danger at bay, to keep kids in school, which is really where they began. But when it all boils down to all of it, my wife and I, we've worked really hard this last 10 months to perhaps die while living our life, rather than to try to live some semblance of a life as though we're about to die. The virus is real, but most people are not in danger of dying from it.
Amen. That is a great quote, Kevin. Semper Fi, my friend. We're glad you're here in America safe and have been for the last 40 years. And we would love to have you back. Thank you again.
We'll talk again. Thanks, Debbie. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. You too.
God bless America.
Amen to that. When we come back, we will talk more about the inauguration, President Trump's pardons, that and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Howdy, folks. It's the Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our hay-bussin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at our salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spoon-rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Since opening in Hebron in 1940, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been your hometown bank. Our mission has been to provide modern banking convenience with old-fashioned hometown service. We've grown with the communities we serve through year-round events, countless sponsorships, and nearly 7,000 hours of volunteering each year. Learn more about our 80-year history at dakotacommunitybank.com.
Jeez, what a mess. Look at that. There's roof stuff everywhere. It's so embarrassing. Ruins the neighborhood. Come on, humans. Let's get this fixed.
Don't let your roof go to the dogs. Call America's Best Contractors for your free estimate.
Need a new woof?
After checking with the rest, go with the best. America's Best Contractors. 258-2412. Online at americasbestcontractorsincorporated.com.
For the greatest selection and full menu offering, it's the Four Seasons Restaurant and Ice Cream Parlor in Garrison. Succulent sandwiches, big breakfasts served all day, and delicious desserts. Easy access in and out for campers and RVs. The Four Seasons Restaurant at the top of Main Street, Garrison.
Some things in life are hard. That's why banking shouldn't be. Cornerstone Bank.
Welcome Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie on Beck. So at the beginning of the show, we talked about how President Trump announced his last-minute pardons, and they were over 140 people, 143 people got pardons. A lot of people that the president was predicted to pardon, he did not do so, and I'm glad when it comes to many of the ones that they said he would pardon. There are some I have a big problem with that he did pardon, and let's go through them. So here's who did not get pardoned. None of the rioters got pardoned. There were a lot of people predicting this. I never thought the president would pardon people who burst into the Capitol, who were going to hang his vice president. Even if he had a falling out with Mike Pence or any of the people in Congress, he's not a violent person. I don't think he ever wanted the violence on the Capitol. I don't believe that. And people who do are absurd, which is why this whole impeachment process is ridiculous. But he did not pardon any of them. I never thought he would. Joe Exotic, the guy from the Tiger King. And no, I never watched the Tiger King on Netflix, but apparently Joe Exotic was convicted of trying to have this woman, the Tiger Lady, killed, who apparently may have had her own billionaire husband killed. And not only that, but he also was alleged to have abused the tigers and so on. So he is in prison for a long time. And his supporters were so sure that the president was going to pardon him, they had a limo waiting outside, and the limo maybe is still waiting. I don't know, but it's not going to have a passenger coming out of that prison. He also did not pardon himself or any of his family members. I think that was wise because he was warned that if he did do that, in order to fight against the right of a president to pardon himself, because we don't know if that is a right or not, it's never been tested, the Biden Justice Department would have probably fought that tooth and nail, and it would have had a bad result potentially for him and his whole family. He could have resigned the hour before and had Mike Pence do it, but I think they had such a falling out that that wasn't likely to happen either. I think that was a smart move. All these people predicting it, but we don't know for sure because guess what? There is such a thing as a secret pardon. Now, this press release that named 143 people, we don't know if that's everybody he pardoned. He may have pardoned other people, including himself and his family members, and just not told anybody about it until and unless they get prosecuted for these alleged crimes that for which he may have pardoned them. So we won't know. There are these secret pardons, and a lot of liberals are saying, oh, he secretly pardoned himself and his family. We don't know. We have no idea, and maybe we'll find out. Maybe we won't. So here's who he did pardon that I have a problem with. I went through the entire list, and by the way, I went back to the White House website this afternoon as I was prepping for the show to go back through the list, and I want you to see this error message that I got already. Boy, they move swift. Look at this error message. Do we have that from the White House? Check that out. That was where the press release was of who got pardoned. And the minute apparently Joe Biden gets sworn in, because I went right as he was doing his speech, I was acceptance speech after he was sworn in, I went to look, and it's already gone. And now you have to look at the archives of former presidents. It's really amazing. They do not waste any time. But here who's on the list that I'm kind of disappointed in, but not surprised about. There were two former congressmen who engaged in fraud and ripoffs. One of them's name is Rick Renzi. I think he was from Arizona. The other person's name I cannot remember. Not important. It wasn't somebody I was familiar with. But again, these public corruption cases, I just don't like the president pardoning them. I understood why he did the ones we talked about on the show a few weeks ago, and that is because they were the two congressmen that first endorsed him for president. And listen, that's what what pardoning, unfortunately, is all about. It's who you know, what you did for the person that's doing the pardoning. Bill Clinton did this. You know, Barack Obama did this. Barack Obama pardoned and Bill Clinton pardoned. They've pardoned terrorists from FARC, which is a Latin American terrorist group. So they have done things like this. But still, if we're going to criticize them for that, we can't stand up for the president when he does the same thing. These weren't terrorists, but they were public corruption engagers. They were public servants, and I think they should be held to a different standard. The same goes for former Detroit Mayor Kwame Kilpatrick, who was a big-time liberal Democrat, and he got pardoned by the president. Kwame Kilpatrick was a crime kingpin in Detroit. He ran Detroit like it was his own personal mafia, and he accepted all kinds of bribes for city contracts. He extorted money and blackmailed people. He used the Detroit police detectives to engage in vendettas on people. Some of the people that testified against him, they have security to this day because they are afraid he's going to try and kill them. A lot of people that had stuff against Kwame Kilpatrick, they would turn up missing or dead. There was a stripper named Strawberry who turned up dead. You know, these kinds of people do not deserve pardons. He was sentenced to 28 years in prison. He barely served 7 of it, so not even a quarter. I don't understand why Trump pardoned him. What, because Diamond and Silk, and he even puts Diamond and Silk on the press release as they were the people that pressed for his release. Diamond and Silk. Yes, these legal scholars, Diamond and Silk. And they're the ones that got this Detroit mob boss freed, and a lot of people in the city of Detroit are very disappointed by that. He also pardoned Steve Bannon. That was predictable because he was a Trump crony. They had a falling out because he spoke out against Don Jr. and Ivanka, but then he came back to the fold in these last few months, probably because he wanted the pardon. Now, as I have discussed on this show, Steve Bannon is a crook. He defrauded conservatives, many of them working class people who gave money to We Build the Wall. And that money from We Build the Wall was guaranteed to go 100% to building the wall, and that none of these people were going to collect a salary. And then they collected it and used it on all kinds of luxury goods and services and hotels. And he did that. I don't think he deserved a pardon. Now, we are at the break, but when we come back, I'll talk about a few more people on the pardon list. We will get into what happened at today's inauguration a little bit more. That and more after these messages on No Filter with Debbie on Beck.
Howdy, folks. It's a Caroline Cafe. I reckon it's time you're due for a hearty meal. So saddle up for the day with one of our Hey Bossin' breakfast homemade soups. Fill your grill at a salad bar. Sink your teeth into our famous Caroline burger and barbecue ribs. Top it off with spur rattling pie with a calm roll that's sure to put a smile on even the toughest outlaws. Shake the dirt off the boots each night and warm up with the game. Tell them about it, Stacy.
I can't wait to see you at the county line.
Hi, I'm Dennis Haugen, along with my sons Andy and Mike, and we're showing our support for wind energy in North Dakota.
Wind energy has provided farmers like us with a steady stream of income that's not tied to the weather like crops and cattle are.
Another bonus is that wind farm owners are required to maintain the roads leading up to the turbines. Because of that, oftentimes these roads are the best in the county. Wind energy is good for landowners, it's good for the land, it's good for our economy, and it's good for North Dakota.
Capital City Restaurant Supply is your one-stop shop for quality restaurant products for the large to small kitchens. Commercial-grade restaurant and bar supplies, limb game processing equipment, refrigeration, dinnerware, and smallware. We sell everything including the kitchen sink from trusted manufacturers for the chef and all of us. Open to the public since 1971, we are veteran-owned and North Dakota proud. Let us take care of your restaurant and home kitchen needs today by visiting us at 1414 Interstate Loop in Bismarck or on the web at capitalcityrestaurantsupply.com.
My wife was diagnosed with early stage Alzheimer's. We talked about it and we kind of decided we'd be a little bit proactive and try to start making provisions. So we started looking here, and Eventide worked out to be pretty much the perfect answer. I guess I didn't expect it to be so nice. The staff here were terrific. We enjoy it.
The professionals at Superior Glass provide residential and commercial glass installation and repair services in central and western North Dakota. Superior Glass is your source for stained glass projects, mirrors, windows, touchless and automated entry solutions. Stop by and see us at 3323 East Broadway in Bismarck or call us at 701-258-5600. Superior Glass, where you get superior service for less. Bye for now.
Now is the best time to plan for your 2021 farm equipment needs. North Dakota-based Summers Manufacturing is currently offering early order savings. Take advantage of big savings on North America's broadest tillage line, including the Super Coulter Samurai and the innovative VRT Renegade, as well as the best built, best backed land rollers in the industry. Talk to your Summers dealer today or go to summersmfg.com to learn more about early order savings available on all Summers equipment.
Welcome back to No Filter with Debbie on Beck. So before the break, we were talking about some of President Trump's pardons that were announced early this morning, late last night, whatever you want to call it. It was 1 a.m., I think, this morning when the press release was issued. So a couple of the people that the president pardoned are rappers, Lil Wayne and Kodak Black, and I just don't think they deserved it. Why did they get that? Because the Kardashians told them to, or because Lil Wayne endorsed him? Well, I think it is because Lil Wayne endorsed him. So let me just tell you a little bit about Lil Wayne, and then we'll talk about Kodak Black. Lil Wayne has a career of criminality. Usually pardons are for somebody that committed a crime a long time ago, they served most of their sentence, and they have engaged in community service and given something back to the community. Neither of these people really did that. Maybe you could argue Kodak Black, but these guys, their crimes were so recent and so frequent in the case of Lil Wayne. So he was arrested in July 2007 following a performance in New York. The New York City Police Department discovered him smoking pot on a bus. He also had an unregistered .40 caliber pistol. He was charged with criminal possession of a gun, of a weapon, and marijuana. Now, in October of 2007, he was arrested on felony fugitive charges, and also he was possessing a controlled substance. Those charges were dropped because of a quote-unquote mix-up. In 2008, he was arrested along with two others by Border Patrol near Yuma, Arizona. He had marijuana, almost 29 grams of cocaine, 41 grams of ecstasy, $22,000 in cash. He was charged with 4 felonies, including possession of narcotic drug for sale, of dangerous drugs, misconduct involving weapons, and possession of drug paraphernalia. In May 2008, a bench warrant was issued, in March 2010, a bench warrant was issued because he did not show up to court in this case. But you know what? He was already incarcerated. He was serving a 1-year sentence in Rikers Island in New York on weapons charges. And after that, in December 2009, he was detained in Falfurrias, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, Texas, by Border Patrol because he had marijuana. All right, listen, I understand pot is legal in a lot of states. A lot of states are moving to legalize it. They're trying to do that in North Dakota. But it was illegal, and he had a lot of other drugs in many of these cases. He was due for sentencing in February 2010, where he was supposed to get a 1-year county jail sentence. But guess what? He announced he was getting dental surgery, so he didn't show up, and he got root canals instead. All right? This is his attitude. You don't pardon a guy like this, but wait, there's more. All right? So in March 2010, he was given a 1-year sentence. He served in Rikers Island, and he was in possession of contraband in Rikers Island. What was the contraband? It wasn't drugs, but you're not allowed to have an MP3 player, a charger, and headphones. Why? Those can be used for other purposes that are illegal, communicating with people, helping in drug deals, those kinds of things. So he had that. Then he was released from Rikers Island after 8 months in 2010, November. On December 12th of 2020, so this is just a month ago, he pleaded guilty to federal firearms charges brought against him from an incident during December of the year before that. In 2019, he was transporting a loaded handgun on his private jet from California. As a convicted felon, he's barred from possessing such weapons. All right, so he was due to appear in court January 28th, so 8 days from now. He was facing a maximum of 10 years in prison. Should he get that much? I don't know, but a lot of people are serving a lot more for the same thing or less. He was pardoned. I don't go for that. No can do, but apparently the president did. Now, also pardoned was Kodak Black, and I want to show you something from the press release announcing the commutation. It's like a who's who of a hip-hop party. Look at this. So Bill Capri, that's the real name of Kodak Black, and he is a prominent artist and community leader. He's community leader, and it's supported by Gucci Mane, Lil Pump, and Lil Yachty. So we have these legal scholars and experts on who should get a pardon by the name of Gucci Mane, Lil Pump, and Lil Yachty. And we know Lil Pump was at one of the president's rallies and endorsed him also. So this is how pardons go. President Trump is no different from any of the other presidents. They help people who help them and who do big things for them during campaigns. They owe favors, they give favors back. Now, there are a lot of stories about how some lawyers like Rudy Giuliani were charging $2 million to get to the president to get a pardon. Others were charging $50,000. You know what? That's not just President Trump. This is how it works with any president. If a lawyer has access to the president or his pardon team, they charge for that access. That's called the free market. It's called capitalism. It's called free enterprise. I don't have a problem with it. I don't like it. But that's the real world. Welcome to it. That's how it works. All right? No different than Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, or anybody else. So also pardoned was Jeanine Pirro from Fox News' ex-husband, fined. His conviction for tax evasion, some other stuff happened years ago. He served his time. He has made it up. And most of the people on this list of 143 are people you've never heard of. Just people who were recommended by the Kardashians. Why does the Kardashians have so much say? And their friends Jared and Ivanka, and other people working with prisoners who went to jail maybe for pot or something that was not a big deal, or they've served their time. I have no problem with that. And most of his pardons were that. All right, we are nearing the end of the show, but I just want to show you a couple things. So Lady Gaga sang the national anthem at the Joe Biden inauguration today. Take a look at her picture, and then take a look at the picture of some people she looked like to me. All right, there she is in that little Heidi uniform hairdo. Look at what else she reminds me of. Take a look at these pictures. Do we have the other pictures that she reminds me of from Germany? There's one of them. Look at the same hairdo. Hitler. All right, another one. I think we have another picture, right? Maybe we don't have the other picture. But you know what? It's ironic to me that they're calling those of us on the right Nazis. We aren't. And she dresses like a Nazi. And I have so much more on today's inauguration ceremony, but we'll have to get to it tomorrow. Because remember, things are not always as they seem. See you tomorrow.